patriotic dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. This is NewsLink. Here are the top stories. ECOWAS considers easing sanctions on Niger amid concerns over prolonged detention of deposed President Bazoum.
Based on the outcomes of the engagement by the Committee of Heads of State with the CNSP, the authority will progressively ease the sanctions imposed on Niger.
UN mission in Mali concludes operations today amid 310 peacekeepers lost in stabilizing efforts. Guinean press unions declare no press day in protest against High Communications Authority's attack on press freedom. And Jame for Justice Coalition commends sentencing of Gambian Death Squad member in 2005 massacre.
He had sought asylum in Germany, and we had heard about it. And so we cooperated with the German authorities and had him brought to trial.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NewsLink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Liberia, Ghana, and the Gambia. Let's begin in Nigeria, where ECOWAS leaders have expressed concerns about the situation in Niger, specifically the ongoing detention of President Mohamed Bazoum by the CNSP regime. ECOWAS has established a committee to engage with the military junta in Niger, aiming to create a transition roadmap and oversee the implementation. In a communique at the end of the 64th ordinary session in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, the regional bloc indicated its commitment to ease sanctions on Niger based on the outcome of these engagements. Here is the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Umar Toure.
The authority decides to set up a committee of heads of state to engage with CNSP and other stakeholders, with a view to agreeing on a short transition roadmap, establishing transition organs, as well as facilitating the setting up of a transition monitoring and evaluation mechanism towards the speedy restoration of constitutional order. Based on the outcomes of the engagement by the Committee of Heads of State with the CNSP, the authority will progressively ease the sanctions imposed on Niger.
Dr. Umar Toure is president of the ECOWAS Commission. Meanwhile, ECOWAS also acknowledged that despite concerted efforts, threats to democracy in the sub-region continue to escalate, especially expressing concern about the proposal from some members to form the Sahelian Alliance. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja reports.
In a renewed push to restore democracy in coup-hit West Africa, leaders from across the sub-region on Sunday acknowledged for the first time that their efforts to stem the tide of coups have so far yielded little result. The 15-nation regional bloc, ECOWAS, has unsuccessfully tried to restore political stability across West and Central Africa, which has recorded 8 military takeovers since 2020, with Niger and Gabon being the most recent. Political turbulence that rocked the governments of Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau in the past month has also been described as attempted coups. Despite sanctions and other measures by ECOWAS, the junta in Niger has consolidated its grip on power, while the military governments of Mali and Burkina Faso have stopped collaborating with the bloc on their country's transition to civilian rule. Here is ECOWAS Commission President Omar Aliyu Toure speaking at the 64th ordinary session of the bloc in Abuja, Nigeria's capital.
The peaceful elections that ECOWAS has supported in Nigeria, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, these elections and those before them have all shattered the narrative that political change in Africa is possible only through military coup.
President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria, who is the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State, says the formation of a Sahelian alliance by the military juntas calls for concern, and all hands must be on deck to restore constitutional order in all parts of the sub-region.
This summit is taking place at a
very significant moment in our sub-region, not just in our region alone, but globally. We are confronted with the challenge of democratic consolidation, economic difficulties, climate change crisis, and food insecurity, among others. Our gathering here today is therefore a clear demonstration of our resolute commitment to develop and promote effective integration of our sub-region.
As the ECOWAS meeting continues, the Niger junta, via X, formerly known as Twitter, maintains its stance without referencing the meeting or the bloc. Notably, officials from Bazoum's deposed government attended the Abuja meeting. The bloc still refers to the events in Niger as attempted coup. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Now, MINUSMA will officially end its activities in the country today. The Mali office played a pivotal role in stabilizing the region. It facilitated local peace agreements and supported various initiatives fostering social cohesion. However, the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali has borne a heavy toll, losing 310 peacekeepers, the majority in hostile engagements. Abdullahi Hassan has more in the following report.
The United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali, MINUSMA, concludes its operations on December 11, marking the end of a tenure characterized by significant sacrifices. The formal conclusion, marked by a closing ceremony in Bamako, follows the recent closure of the Savary camp, signifying the mission's departure from Mali's central regions. The second phase withdrawal included the shutdown of bases in Ouagadougou and Douenta earlier this year. On December 9, the last members, both civilian and military, departed from the Savary camp, handing over all related documents to the governor of the Mopti region. Out of the 13,871 peacekeepers involved, 10,514 have already left, and the remaining personnel will exit Mali by the end of December 2023 as mandated by the Security Council. The liquidation phase, starting on January 1, 2024, will involve bases in Bamako, Timbuktu, and Gao, with equipment transfer, contract terminations, and authority handovers. Despite the substantial contributions to stabilize Mali, MINUSMA experienced the loss of 310 peacekeepers, solidifying its position as deadliest peacekeeping operation worldwide during its tenure since July 2013.
Abdullahi Hassan reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NEWSLINK continues.
We cross over to Guinea, where press unions and professional associations are laying down their tools as they declare today a No Press Day. The initiative is a collective protest against what they say is deliberate interference with the signals of specific media outlets critical of the transitional authorities. Additionally, the press organizations are condemning the removal of select private television channels from the Canal Plus network, a move carried out on the orders of the High Authority for Communication in the country. Na Dede Tete has the rest of the story.
After the frequencies of certain private radio stations were jammed in the country, the High Communications Authority (HAC) directed Canal Plus, the channel distributor, to remove 3 private television channels, Joma, Evasion, and Espace, from their offerings. These channels have been critical of the government. Boubacar Yassine Diallo, president of the HAC, stated that the withdrawals were for national security reasons.
This decision has been made. It is accepted. We have nevertheless triggered an investigation procedure at the level of the HAC, and a plenary convened today at 11 a.m. will make it possible to rule on the case to see if there are facts which are plausible and in this case maintain or not to sanction.
However, Évasion Télévision's general manager contested the reasoning provided by the regulatory authority, expressing a differing view on the decision. According to Nathalie Guilavogui, this move is simply an attempt to silence media outlets critical of the current military-led government. Guilavogui has served notice to lodge a complaint against both the government and Canal Plus Group.
Canal
informed us that it is the urgent request of the Guinean authorities that the Groupe Escape radio and television have been removed. Without listening to us cut our images on channel, we say that it is an abuse. A complaint will be filed against Canal, the Guinean state, and the High Communications Authority.
At a meeting on Sunday, the professional press associations and unions urged journalists to observe the No Press Day today. There's also a planned demonstration for Thursday at the forecourts of the headquarters of the High Communications Authority.
Nade Tete filed that report. Now, the Jame to Justice Coalition has welcomed the recent sentencing of Gambian Death Squad members who played a role in the murder of some 44 Ghanaians and other West African nationals in 2005. The man whose name is given as Bello was a driver for the Junglers, a Gambian death squad created by the ruling government in the mid-1990s to immediate or eliminate any form of opposition. Speaking to WADR, William Nyaku, Executive Director of the Africa Center for International Law and Accountability, which forms part of the Jame to Justice Coalition, said more efforts are underway to bring other perpetrators to book.
The recent actions that have resulted from the campaign has been the jailing of Bailo. Bailo was part of President Yahya Jammeh's junta called paramilitary forces. He was a driver of the vehicle that took these Ghanaians and other West African migrants to the point where they were killed. So he did not actually participate in the killing, but he was an accessory to the crime, having driven these innocent migrants to be killed. So he had sought asylum in Germany, and we had heard about it. And so we cooperated with the German authorities and had him brought to trial.
How recent was this?
This verdict was given last week, just last week. We had the sole survivor, Martin Tre, who used to live in Ghana, fly to Germany and testified in the German court. So the court found Bailo guilty of the crime and has been sentenced to life imprisonment. There are other actions going on in Switzerland and the U.S. involving Gambians who also participated in the killings. And the trials are ongoing, one in Switzerland and the other in the U.S.
William Nyaku added that they have also not given up on bringing the former Gambian president, Yahya Jammeh, to book.
The main culprit who we had determined from our investigations was Yahya Jammeh, and whom the Gambia Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission also affirmed that he was the one who gave the instructions for the unlawful killings. As you know, he's still in Equatorial Guinea. If he were in an European country or in a North American country, we could use the principle of universal jurisdiction to bring him to trial anywhere he is. And that's the principle of universal jurisdiction allows in cases where there's been egregious violations of human rights involving such unlawful killings, crimes against humanity, no matter where the crime was committed, you will be brought to trial. So he's the person that we still continue to work on, and we are hopeful that it's just a matter of time that he would be also be brought to trial, and as well as justice is giving him compensation.
William Nyaku is Executive Director of the Africa Center for International Law and Accountability. You're listening to NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS consider easing sanctions on Niger amid concerns over prolonged detention of deposed President Bazoum. UN mission in Mali concludes operations today amid 310 peacekeepers lost in stabilizing efforts. Guinean press unions declared No Press Day in protest against High Communications Authority's attack on press freedom. And Jame for Justice Coalition commenced sentencing of Gambian Death Squad member in 2005 massacre. Still ahead is the press review, the guest interview, and sports updates. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
The Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission has announced its intention to utilize its direct prospectoral powers to handle alleged corruption cases. In observance of Anti-Corruption Day over the weekend, chairperson of the commission, Councillor Alexander Zoe, made a resolute declaration affirming that the institution would not waver in its fight against corruption, irrespective of the individuals involved.
The granting of the direct prosecutorial power to the Commission, their LACC will leave no stone unturned in identifying, persecuting, and punishing corrupt officials in the Liberian society. Let me assure our partners in the fight against corruption that there is no hiding place for corrupt people in Liberia. Integrated institutions are closely ranking information sharing, intelligence gathering, and interagency collaboration towards ensuring that resources of Liberians are used for the greater good and well-being of all Liberians. Liberia cannot know lasting peace and development without effectively fighting corruption. Therefore, we call on all Liberians to promote integrity and increase public participation in the fight against corruption in Liberia. There is a general agreement that corruption is harmful, undermining investment, and exacerbating poverty. Accountability systems such as income and asset declaration by public officials are more prevalent.
Chairperson of Liberia's Anti-Corruption Commission, Councillor Alexander Zoe, speaking there.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Usman Omar joins us now with the major headlines from the Nigerian dailies.
Hello and welcome to Newspaper Review segment. Let's begin with the Vanguard newspaper, leading with manufacturing sector bleeds as forex loss rises 400% to 466 billion naira, with the rider squeezes profit by 24.6%, leads to lay off all workers, multinationals exiting, threat to economy. This is coming from an analyst. You have the story coming from the update on the yesterday concluded ECOWAS 64th summit. Coup, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso alliance won't weaken ECOWAS resolve for democracy. This is coming from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is also the chairman of the Authority of Heads of States and Government of the ECOWAS. Let's quickly move over to This Day newspaper. This Day is also leading with this story from ECOWAS Summit. ECOWAS leaders, it's time to activate counter-terrorism standby force, with a rider promise gradual easing of sanctions on Niger, sets up committee. And above the masthead of the This Day newspaper, you have Access Bank, United Kingdom receives approval to commence operations in Hong Kong. And quickly, we move to Abuja Inquirer. Unpaid bills threaten West management in Abuja. And we move quickly over to Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust is leading with Why Naira Scarcity Persists Despite Supreme Court Judgment, with a rider, queues for cash resurfaces, point of sale operators hike charges, 2024 budget Works Ministry to spend 1 billion naira on grass cutting, 3.1 billion naira on vehicles. And the last one there, on top of the leading story on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, senators donate salaries to victims of Kaduna village massacre. And it's on that note that we draw the curtains on today's edition of Press Review. With me, Usman Umar, handing you over back to the studios.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview this noon focuses on the regional bloc ECOWAS meeting in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, where leaders expressed concerns about the situation in Niger, specifically the ongoing detention of President Mohamed Bazoum by the CNSP regime. ECOWAS has established a committee to engage with the military junta in Niger, aiming to create a transition roadmap and oversee its implementation. How effective will the bloc's committee engagement with the military junta in Niger be in creating a transition roadmap and overseeing its implementation? ECOWAS also indicated a commitment to easing sanctions on Niger based on the outcomes of engagements. As we take a look at what factors will influence the decision to ease sanctions and what potential challenges may arise, Dr. Maji Peters joins us now to share his perspective.
Well, it's good that they are meeting so that they don't feel like they're down, and it's important for them to know the relevance of this meeting. Then, what they're going to achieve from the meeting is not a product of the meeting. It's a product of the approach they engage in getting results. So, if they have multi-track diplomacy, that will work. It will favor them. If they are able to have a team of analysts that has a lot of regards and that have a drive for positive action and that look at analysis from the perspective of the interest of the people, that are able to negotiate on a win-win, then they're going to get results. But if they mistakenly think of militarization, it will be easy for Niger to cede allegiance to the Confederation. That happens. The West African sub-region is not ready to go down that track of Anglo-Francophone conflict. So the meeting is good. We cannot leave Niger on their own. We cannot isolate them. We cannot allow the Francophone African countries to start forming a pact on their own. We're all brothers, and if we need to move on, we should look at the collective good.
Right. So the regional bloc during the meeting has indicated a commitment to easing sanctions on Niger based on the outcomes of engagements. So what factors do you think will influence the decision to ease sanctions, and what potential challenges may arise?
No, I think if they ease the sanction, it means that they are opening doors for conversation. I mean, you don't pin me down and tie my hand and tell me, let's discuss. You make sure that I have my hand, I have freedom, I have my liberty, I have my resources, I have my ability to think. I could discuss on the platform of my merit. That's when you can tell me, let's discuss, not when you're pinning me down. So I think it's intention. Niger, the ordinary citizens in Niger have suffered over time in the few weeks, few days that these sanctions have been on. So the earlier they stop it, the better for all.
Okay. So based on this experience and other past experiences in the region, are there any lessons that ECOWAS should consider when dealing with political crisis and threats to democracy?
I think we should ensure that we bring all the peoples to the table so that our conversation and negotiation does not create factions within the state. People need to see governance as being proactive. People need to see governance as being for their interest. People need to see governance as not just a set of people or a cartel, strengthening themselves and getting all they need for themselves. People want to see leadership focused on them. People want to see leadership looking at their rights. People want to see leadership providing social services and amenities. The truth is that even when we have tight leaders, it's not because the people say they must go, it's because they stay there for too long and they don't think about the people. Majority of the nations in Africa, if they are going to have a monarchy that respects the rights and privileges that they're supposed to enjoy, that provides all the social services that governance all about, that ensure that their freedoms that are enshrined in their constitution are respected, they won't even mind. We want democracy because we want to have a system of checks so that when we're talking with people, when we're talking about governance, when we're talking about leadership, we have a way to hold them accountable and to put them to the test. So they will do what we want so that we could support them. Political parties are able to hold their candidates accountable so that it does not jeopardize their chances in the next election. That's the only role that democracy plays. If people are not getting value for that, automatically they will rather opt to have anybody that would work for them. So, and in ECOWAS too, how many of the leadership who are sitting down there have legitimacy? How many of them are backed by people power? These are some of the things that need to come to the desk before they start making resolutions and recommendations to other nations.
Dr. Maji Peters is a regional governance expert. Sankule Janko is here with the sports update.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. African football legends have converged in the Moroccan city of Marrakesh ahead of the 2020 CAF Awards tonight. CAF has announced the presence of several renowned guests who will join the nominees in celebrating the excellence and remarkable achievements of African football. Meanwhile, Moroccan media personality Wadi Dada and international host Sophie Aida from Cameroon will host the CAF Awards on Monday evening. Elsewhere, reigning champions Mamelodi Sundowns were held to a goalless draw by Pyramids of Egypt in the CAF Champions League on Sunday. The 2020 champions failed to find the winner, despite playing with a numerical advantage after Pyramids were reduced to 10 men following a red card. The draw keeps Pyramids bottom of Group A, but are now level on 4 points with the reigning champions. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudu Juf for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tawfiq Abdul Nasir. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening